Chapter 8. How could she talk about Eric about their relationship with someone whose life and lifestyle were so different from hers, the things that seemed special to her, little gifts, shared holidays, dancing together to her favorite song, would probably seem childish and silly to him in comparison to the glamorous, expensive gifts and vacations he lavished on the women he was with, especially since she was usually the one buying the gifts and begging Eric to dance. When the song came on, Eric indulged her though, and that mattered. Eric had always been there, a steady, stable part of her life right up until he wasn't. How could George, who kept a rotating list of girlfriends, understand what it was like to really see a future with someone and then have that future disappear? George studied her, waited for her to answer, but she held her ground, remaining silent in meeting his gaze. Finally he relented, and she released the breath that she had held for those long moments. I know it's late, but would you like a cup of coffee? She glanced at her phone. Drinking coffee this late would probably keep her up, but for some reason she didn't mind the thought of talking to him a little longer. Yeah, that sounds nice, she said. We'll just have to be quiet in the kitchen so we don't wake the pooch. George said, a surprisingly mischievous smile on his face as he gestured over by the fireplace. Sure enough, Colby was curled up on a dog bed, fast asleep. He'd gone upstairs with George earlier, and she hadn't seen him come back down. He must have snuck into the great room while they were talking. George pushed up from the couch and started towards the kitchen. Brea jumped after him and grabbed his arm, the shock of the touch sending chills through her fingers and upper arm. Goosebumps broke out everywhere as her cheeks flushed. She dropped her hand immediately, hoping that he didn't notice her own reaction to the contact. Let me, she said sheepishly. His eyebrows shot up, but he didn't argue, stepping back and taking a seat while he watched her get to work. The owner of the Hideout, the small town coffee shop where Brea had worked for the last several years, had come to appreciate her abilities so much that Brea's recipes had started showing up on the menu. Now she dug through George's fridge and cabinet, stacking up everything she would need to impress him with her coffee-making abilities. Do you need any help? He offered, surprisingly polite. Her body tensed as he moved behind her, close enough that she could feel the heat from his chest burning into her back. He pulled 2 mugs from a cabinet and placed them beside her numerous ingredients. She grinned at him as she worked. No thank you, this is kind of my job. She ground the beans and got the coffee brewing. Do you have chocolate syrup and any peppermint? George made a grimace she'd seen on the faces of plenty of coffee addicts in her time at the coffee shop whenever flavored syrups were mentioned. I know, talk like that is sacrilege to someone who likes a strong black brew. But the truth is I don't drink coffee, it's just not my thing. I prefer the chocolate. So you're a connoisseur of coffee, but you won't drink it? Brea laughed, nodding. How did you become such an expert? Then do you just follow the recipes? I used to, but after so long at it, you start to know what will work and what won't. She blushed as she said her next words. So I started throwing things together, and well, I guess I'm pretty good at it. But you still won't drink it? He asked again incredulously. How do you know it's any good if you won't even try it? Well, the customers have yet to complain, so I suppose that's saying something, isn't it? When they keep coming back and asking for it again, I take that as a sign that I'm onto something, I suppose. As she worked over her coffee creation, she heard him whipping up a hot chocolate behind her. Whipped cream? He asked. She turned and narrowed her eyes. Are you kidding me? Of course I want whipped cream. What's hot chocolate without whipped cream? He smiled, along with her piling on the whipped cream and sprinkling chocolate shavings over top. You have your masterpiece, and I have mine. Granted, mine came from a package, and yours? He nodded towards the concoction on her side of the kitchen, and the numerous ingredients she had laid out is a fair bit more complicated. Still, I'm proud. Brea giggled, and she suddenly realized that she wasn't having as miserable a time as she had thought she would. As you should be, it's beautiful. The fire was roaring as they made themselves comfortable on the couch once again with their hot chocolates along with Brea's special brew. Would you believe that I've not shared this house with anyone since I was a teenager? George asked. This place belongs to my grandfather. I made a lot of upgrades and additions over the years, but there hasn't been anyone other than me to see them. Why not? It's a gorgeous place. Don't you want to share it with someone? Maybe someday, he said vaguely, but up until now no one has caught my attention. Brea waited, but he said nothing else. She knew there must be more to the story. But for some reason George was choosing to not share. With her choosing discretion, she decided that she wouldn't prod him about it either. She didn't want to push him into a corner, so she paused. If this is your private place, what do you do out here? Just sit in a quiet. Doesn't that feel weird when you spend so much of the rest of your life in the tabloids?